The year 2017 was generous for good games, and it is still unknown whether 2018 could outdo its predecessor. The quality of the games for PlayStation will be judged after their release. But by the number you can now say quite accurately, for 2018 there are so many interesting projects that they are difficult to fit into one rating. But we still tried. Let's go. Far Cry 5. This is probably one of the most anticipated games of 2018. A crazy action movie promises what he always brought: blood, shooting, explosions and actions. The release of the new Far Cry was originally planned for late February, but was postponed for a month. You will not believe, but the reason is that Ubisoft wants to make Far Cry even better. So they, by the way, acted with Assassin's Creed Origins. Anthem. You cannot ignore it, since BioWare Edmonton, who was happy with the world of Mass Effect, Dragon Age and Star Wars, is involved in the development. What is known about him currently? The post-apocalyptic world of the future is under the protection of freelancers, well-equipped professionals. They participate in large-scale events, fight with dangerous creatures and in every way restore good in this world. The development of A Way Out is Youssef Fez, who gave the world an Unusual Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons. Obviously, the new game took many of the ideas of an adventure puzzle. But this time you will have to solve not riddles, but arrange on the screen moving. The main characters are two fugitives, respectively. Play will have to pair, which are selected, from prison and, as it is easy to imagine, must hide from the authorities. Beyond Good and Evil 2 is a computer game in the genre action-adventure, which is the prequel of the 2003 Beyond Good and Evil game. The game is developed by a team of developers led by Michel Ancel. The plot of the game tells about corporate programs to cross people and animals to quickly conquer outer space, as well as about the consequences of this program eventually led. Biomutant is an adventure role-playing action from the former developers of the Just Cause series, in which players find themselves in a world full of mutant animals that fight each other and the world around them, using both different weapons and martial arts techniques. It is noted that the developers want to achieve replayability with the help of a deep character development system and 3 systematically generated worlds that can be explored on foot, in furs, on balloons, a water motorcycle and UFOs. Actions in Red Dead Redemption 2 will occur at the end of the 19th century in the American Old West. The game will tell the story of Bandit Arthur Morgan, in which there will be a place for betrayal, robberies, shootings and chases. In general, everything that should entertain the millionth army of gamers. The screen will show the beautiful views, the peaceful life of cowboys and indigenous people of the continent, chases on horses, skirmishes and locomotives. Code Vein is a hardcore action RPG with an emphasis on exploring the dungeons. The game takes place in the near future, in which the world lies in ruins. Players will become a ghost, a vampire with supernatural powers, a being that is a development of a person, but has lost memories. Their main goal is to find the truth about the disaster that happened, simultaneously cooperating with various allies to complete simpler everyday tasks. After the events of the original, the continuation story, according to the developers, will be built around hatred, not love. Events unfold 5 years after what happened in The Last of Us. Ellie is 19 years old. and she is driven by a thirst for revenge. The main hero of the sequel, which is under the control of the players, will be Ellie. In the near future in Detroit, from the conveyor comes Kara, the first high-tech android with his own mind. Is it, or is it, struggling to find its place in a world where androids remain simple mechanisms designed to make a person's life even more comfortable? In Detroit, Become Human. There are several playable characters, so the death of one of them does not mean a complete failure and the end of the game. The decisions made by the gamer will influence what is happening in the future. At some points, progress can be reversed and make a different choice. Ghost of Tsushima, a new game from the studio Sucker Punch, dedicated to the samurai, defending his native Japan from the invasion of the Mongols. The game unfolds in 1274. When the Mongol Empire invades the Japanese island of Tsushima. In the role of one of the last surviving samurai, you will have to repel the invaders. However, the noble samurai tactics of battles will not help you achieve victory. You will have to go beyond the traditions to form a new fighting style, the style of the noiseless ghost that carries revenge. Death Stranding, one of the most anticipated and the most recent video games in the history of the game industry. Some call Hideo Kojima a genius, others, a common eccentric. But the fact that he makes one of the most mysterious games of this reality is a fact. The game will only be released for the PlayStation consoles, and this is final. After all, Sony certainly would not give Kojima such a budget for a game that would not be an exclusive. Days Gone is released in 2018 on the PlayStation 4. Long time since we heard nothing about zombies. But nothing. The game from Z-Bend Studio should fix this misunderstanding. The actions of the post-apocalyptic action Days Gone unfold after the world was filled with live ghouls, freakers, and people for the sake of survival united in the communities. Darksiders 3, the third part of the series of slashers, narrating about the horsemen of the apocalypse. This time as a protagonist is a female magician, Rage, sister of death, war and discord. The Rage is to go to the post-apocalyptic Earth and, armed with a magic whip, to find the incarnations of the 7 deadly sins to deal with them and restore the shaken balance in the world. RPG from CD Projekt Red, which is based on the foundation of the eponymous desktop role-playing game for authorship of Mike Pondsmith, who takes part in the creative process. Fans of a real cyberpunk can count on a non-linear story, a believable and brutal world for an adult audience, a deep role-playing system inspired by the desktop twinned-up, a huge arsenal of cybernetic implants and modifiable weapons, and the presence of different character classes with the possibility of creating, in contrast to The Witcher, their own hero. The developers of Metro Exodus said earlier that they did not have to work on a more ambitious project. At E3 it was confirmed that a new story would begin in post-apocalyptic Moscow, starting from the place where Metro Last Light ended in 2013. Then the player will go outside the Russian capital, engaged in the study of the district. There reigns a severe nuclear winter and live an unprecedented monster. Although there is a great chance to meet old acquaintances. Insomniac Games took on a serious task, as it has to implement a standalone product that does not have specific comics at its core and is not directly related to the released films. What will appear for sure? So it's Peter Parker in the suit of Spider-Man. In the game he will be 23 years old. In the image of the Defender of New York, he has been speaking for 8 years. The victory over Wilson Fisk remained in the past. His place was occupied by the Gang and the Demons. Characters will be involved in a new conflict. God of War. As follows from the description of the plot: since Kratos avenged the gods of Olympus, many years have passed. Kratos lives with his son in the world of Scandinavian gods and monsters, continuing to fight for survival, and also teaches Atreus what he does best. Ahead of them, the decision of traditional problems of fathers and children awaits. The Scion learns more about the past of his ancestor. Inspired by games that for more than 3 decades are at the forefront of the gaming industry, Dissidia, Final Fantasy NT brings you and your 2 companions to one of more than 10 famous arenas, where you will participate in intense battles, 3-3 between the legendary characters of the Final Fantasy universe. Master new skills, earn skill and personalize your character, honing the acquired skills in training mode, before starting real testing on the network. Concrete Genie is an adventure game about a boy named Ash, who paints graffiti on the walls of houses. One day he notices that the pictures he painted are alive, and thanks to them he can cleanse the city of the accumulated evil, breathing new life into it. In the world of Monster Hunter World, the player controls a hunter who went to explore a new recently discovered continent in the fantasy world. As already mentioned, unlike the previous series, the game will take place in an open world, where the player can move freely and arbitrarily, without any downloads between different locations. The game supports cooperative mode of joint game to 4 players who can jointly overcome even the biggest and strongest goal. It is already known that players from Japan and Western countries will be able to play freely with each other. According to the plot, a wormhole appeared on the ruins of the base, absorbing the surviving fighters of MSF. Once in an alternative and rather eerie universe, soldiers must unite for survival. They have to fight with hordes of monsters in order to somehow return home. The official release of Metal Gear Survive in the US will be February 20th, 2018, and in Europe, on February 22nd. Kingdom Come: Deliverance is a role-playing game with an open world, whose action unfolds in medieval Europe, where people struggle for power and life. The plot of the game is as close to reality as possible. There are no fantasy elements. The game takes place in 1403 and further, in Bohemia, modern Czech Republic. The action takes place at the end of the Middle Ages, when the Great Western Schism took place. Yakuza 6 is a game in the genre action-adventure, created by Amusement Vision, and owned and published by Sega. Gameplay series of games Yakuza is identical to the gameplay of another series, Shenmue. It is also divided into 3 modes: adventures, battles, and events. In the adventure mode, a player can play various mini-games, for example, playing baseball or playing slot machines. After years of waiting, Bandai Namco announced the long-awaited continuation of the Soul Calibur series of fighting games, which, like Tekken 7, was created on the Unreal Engine 4. The novelty will be released in 2018 and will be available on the PlayStation 4. Soul Calibur 6. This is the sixth part of the popular series of fighting games, which offers players a large number of different characters in arenas, where they have to fight with each other. Skull and Bones is a sea multiplayer pirates game, where players are encouraged to become captains of ships, and challenge each other for supremacy at sea. The game offers several different competitive modes, different classes of ships, pumping captains and much more. Shenmue 3 is the prequel of the famous trilogy, created with fan money. The game retained the familiar spirit of the first two parts, acquired modern graphics, and changed the combat system to a more aggressive and dynamic. Initially, the development of the game was cancelled twice, first after the poor sales of the original trilogy, and then after trying to make it a compilation of the first and second parts with the addition of cut chapters. The release of the third part was made possible thanks to the nostalgia of the fans and their support for the project at Kickstarter. Shadow of the Colossus is an action RPG about how a certain Wender with the body of his deceased lover arrives in an ancient abandoned temple located in some forbidden land. He must destroy 16 stone idols, defeating 16 huge monsters called Colossi. This claim was put forward by a mysterious disembodied inhabitant of a temple called Dorman, who promised to resurrect the dead girl in return. Ni no Kuni 2, Revenant Kingdom, the continuation of Ni no Kuni, which is so popular with many, Wrath of the White Witch. The main character of the game, Evan, as well as his friends and allies, is to save his kingdom from the darkness that engulfs him and prove to all that Evan is a worthy ruler. Pleasant atmosphere and graphics in the kit. Japanese studio Arc System Works, known for the series Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, announced a new project in the Dragon Ball universe, Dragon Ball FighterZ for Sony PlayStation 4 platforms. The publisher of the game will be Bandai Namco. The developers promised to provide players with an explosive, action-packed game combining the mechanics of classic 2D fighting games with elaborate 3D character models that will look as if they were cut directly from the anime series Dragon Ball. One of the most massive remakes in the history of the gaming industry. Changed from scratch with the use of all the technologies available on the consoles of the new generation of the legendary seventh part of Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy VII Remake actually made from scratch the game, which saved the plot and the combat system, but it was significantly prettier, preserving the spirit and unique atmosphere of the original. This was the last release for today. Do not forget to put the likes and subscribe to the channel. Furthermore, with you was Bender in Portal Virtual Reality.